My wife, Lisa, and I moved to a new city a few months ago for a fresh start. We'd been through a rough patch, and a change of scenery seemed like the perfect solution. The house we bought was in a quiet neighborhood, exactly what we were looking for. The kind of place where you know your neighbors, and nothing out of the ordinary happens. Or so we thought. Our house was small but cozy, tucked into a little cul-de-sac. The neighbor on one side was an older couple who kept to themselves, and on the other side, there was this man. I remember the first time I saw him, just standing on his porch, staring. He was tall, gaunt, with dark circles under his eyes, like he hadn't slept in days. He didn't wave, didn't nod, just stared. I shrugged it off at first, figuring he was just an unfriendly guy. Every neighborhood has one, right? But then, things started to get strange. It began with small things. Every night around midnight, we'd hear noises coming from his backyard, metallic clanging, like he was working on something. It was weird, but not enough to get worked up over. Maybe he was just a night owl doing some late-night projects. I told myself that, but I couldn't shake the unease that crept up every time I heard those sounds. One night, I couldn't sleep. Lisa was out of town for work, and the house felt too quiet without her. I got up to grab a glass of water and glanced out the kitchen window. That's when I saw him, my neighbor, standing in his backyard. It was the middle of the night, and he was just standing there, staring up at my house. He wasn't doing anything, just looking, like he was waiting for something. I quickly ducked down, my heart racing. I watched from the corner of the window, hoping he didn't see me. After what felt like an eternity, he finally turned around and walked back into his house. I stayed up for the rest of the night, unable to shake the image of him standing there. The next morning, I told Lisa about it when she called, but she brushed it off, saying I was probably just tired. Maybe she was right. Maybe I was overreacting. But then, it got worse. A few nights later, Lisa and I were watching TV when we heard the sound again, metal scraping, like someone dragging something heavy across concrete. I muted the TV, and we both sat there, listening. The noise was coming from our neighbor's yard. Lisa gave me a look, and I knew I wasn't imagining it this time. I got up and peeked out the window. The man was in his backyard again, but this time, he was digging. He had a shovel in his hands, and there was a deep hole in the ground. I couldn't see what he was burying, but it was something large, wrapped in what looked like a tarp. My stomach churned. What the hell is he doing? Lisa whispered, her eyes wide. I don't know, I muttered, pulling her away from the window. But we need to call someone. I grabbed my phone, but just as I was about to dial, the noises stopped. We both looked back out the window, and he was gone, vanished without a trace. The yard was empty, the shovel and tarp nowhere in sight. It was like he'd never been there at all. Lisa and I were both on edge after that. We didn't talk much about what we saw, but it was always there, hanging over us. Every time we stepped outside, I felt like someone was watching us. The neighborhood didn't feel so peaceful anymore. A few nights later, things escalated. It was around 2 a.m., and I woke up to the sound of footsteps outside our bedroom window. I held my breath, straining to hear. The footsteps stopped, but then, there was a tapping sound. Tap. 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 I froze. It was coming from the window. Slowly, I turned my head and saw a shadow outside. The outline of a person, standing right outside, inches from the glass. My heart pounded in my chest as I realized it was him. The neighbor. Lisa woke up, her eyes wide with fear. "What is it?" she whispered. I didn't say anything. I couldn't. We both just stared at the shadow, praying he would go away. Then, without warning, the tapping stopped. The shadow disappeared. I leapt out of bed, rushed to the window, and pulled back the curtain. He was gone. The next morning, I called the police. I didn't care if I sounded paranoid. I had to know what was going on. They came out, talked to the neighbor, but he denied everything. Said he had no idea what I was talking about, and there was no evidence to prove anything. But I knew what I saw. Lisa knew it too. After that, we avoided him at all costs. We never left the house at night, kept the curtains drawn, and tried to act like everything was normal. But things weren't normal. One night, while Lisa was in the shower, I heard the sound of our back door opening. I rushed downstairs, thinking maybe Lisa had left it unlocked by accident, but when I got to the kitchen, the door was wide open. And standing in the doorway, half hidden by the shadows, was the neighbor. He didn't say anything. He just stood there, watching me. I grabbed a kitchen knife, my hands shaking. "What the hell are you doing?" I shouted, trying to keep my voice steady. He smiled, a cold, empty smile that made my blood run cold. "Just wanted to say hello," he said quietly, before turning and walking back out the door, closing it softly behind him. That was the last straw. Lisa and I packed up that night, stayed in a hotel, and put the house up for sale the next morning. I still don't know what he wanted or why he was doing any of it. Maybe he was just trying to scare us, or maybe it was something more sinister. All I know is, I don't want to stick around to find out. We moved to a new city, far away from that house, but sometimes I still wake up in the middle of the night, half expecting to see his shadow outside my window again.